Today, I'm going to see if I can beat a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Emerald Rogue, which is unlike a regular Pokemon game, a roguelike, similar to Binding of Isaac and Hades. For this run, I'm just using the basic Nuzlocke rules and the regular hardcore Nuzlocke rules, as everything being randomized justifies allowing setup in my opinion. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the video. While I vaguely covered how this game kind of works in the intro, I thought I would go into a little more detail. So, basically, a full run in this game is the 8 gym leaders, the Elite Four, Champion Wallace, and Champion Steven, with the game referring to them as Mighty Trainers. In between each Mighty Trainer, you can usually get around 1 to 3 encounters, with some spaces even allowing you to catch legendaries or revive dead Pokemon. On top of all of that, the order you face the gym leaders in is completely random, meaning a little bit of bad encounter luck in a hardcore Nuzlocke of this game can easily result in an insta-lose, because sometimes you just won't be equipped to deal with a certain type early game. Once you beat all of the 8 gym leaders, you then face the Elite Four, who you also battle in a randomized order, and then of course you face Wallace and Steven. Now, I normally don't do this, but because of how short this game is, I decided to discuss some of my failed attempts as well, and some of them actually got pretty far, reaching the later parts of the game, you know, the 7th, 8th gym, maybe the Elite Four. Others ended, well, like this. So, yeah, not great, but the reality is that with games like this, sometimes your run will just be over immediately, with there being literally nothing you can do. Roguelikes as games are also generally just super trial and error. But yeah, finally, let's get into the actual video. Also, please hit the like button and subscribe. So, I begin the game by heading into Professor Rowan's lab, where I, after looking at the 3 options, decide to pick Solrock. I then go into the Pokemon Hub and talk to the lady, starting my journey. Before we start, you may notice that on the encounter tiles, it describes things as stuff like Calm Course. This means 2 things. The first word, which is in this case calm, refers to the difficulty level, with the other 2 being average and tough. The second word, course, refers to the dominant type in that area, which would in this case be ground. So, with all this information in mind, I decided to go to the calm swarm route, as it's the only path that gets me 3 encounters. While there, I pick up a tentacle, pick up a few items, and then head into an average swarming route where I encounter and catch a Girafarig. I then take the average chili route, pick up an Arctozolt, and head into the first Mighty Trainer area and begin the first gym fight, which ends up being against Watson, leading Girafarig, who manages to kill his Rotom after a couple stomps. He then sets out his Pichu, so I switch into Solrock and hit it with a Rock Throw, killing it. His final Pokemon, Togedemaru, is then brought out, and well, I don't know if you've looked at my team, but to say it doesn't exactly deal with electric and steel types well is an understatement. Not only that, but the only decent Pokemon I have for this is below half health, so I just decided to stay in and hit it with a couple Fire Spins, but amidst that, he managed to get a few rollouts up, and I'm now forced to sack a couple Mons. So I decided to send out Tentacle and Arctozolt, leading to the death of both of them. I then send out Solrock again, who managed to easily take it out with Fire Spin thanks to my 2 sacks who stalled out the rollout. Now that I've got my first badge, and I'm picking up the broken pieces of what was once a team, I decided to go to the tough Verdant route, as well as it currently stands, running into Huan would probably be an instant wipe for me. While there, I pick up a Munchlax, who evolves shortly after, giving me a Snorlax, who is just an absolutely fantastic mon, especially for early on in the game. I then take out a few trainers, as I'm in desperate need of some extra money. After that, I decide to go to the average Verdant route, hoping that I'll finally get the beautiful grass Pokemon I'm looking for. On the bright side, I'm in a very good place for a potential Brawly, so maybe it'll be useful. It also has the ability Contrary, so I was excited about getting Superpower until I learned that Malamar doesn't get it until level 48. I then take out a couple trainers and stop at a Mighty Trainer area and begin the gym fight, which luckily ends up being Brawly, leading Solrock, who takes his Stuffle and Mankey out with Confusion, his Meditite with a couple Rock Slides, and his final Pokemon, Clobbopus, with a couple Confusions, winning me the fight and earning me my 2nd badge. Now that I've beat Brawly, I decide to take a Calm Mighty route, where I pick up a Meditite and quickly evolve Inkay. I then take a Calm Wet route, where I catch a Shelter before then arriving at a rest station, where I pick up a Water Stone, evolve Shelter, and optimize some of my movesets. After that, I head into the Mighty Trainer area and begin the fight with Flannery, leading Solrock, who hits a Psychic on Larvesta after she U-turns out of Monferno. I then use Rock Slide, killing Larvesta. Her Monferno is then brought back out, and I go for Rock Slide again, predicting another U-turn, but she just Flame Wheels, so I kill it next turn. Her Darmanitan is brought out and one-shots me, because, well, Flare Blitz Sheer Force exists. Regardless, I then send out Cloyster, who barely survives a Flare Blitz and finishes it off with a Razor Shell. Her final Pokemon, Salazzle, is then sent out, so I switch into Snorlax, who, after a Screech, kills it with a Body Slam, giving me the win, and with the 4th badge. After beating Flannery, I take an average Fierce route, pick up a Dwebble, and then subsequently evolve both Meditite and Dwebble. I then take out a trainer and enter a powerful Pokemon area, which contains the legendary encounters that I mentioned earlier. It was here that I would quickly beat a trainer and then catch what is probably the most important encounter in the entire run, Rayquaza. I then arrive at a Mart Station, where I attempt to optimize some of my movesets, and then enter the Mighty Trainer area, where I begin the fight with Norman, leading Medicham, who easily takes out his first 2 Pokemon. He then sends out his Mega Lopunny, who uses Fake Out. I then switch into Crustle, as I know a return will likely kill me. I then use Slash a couple times before switching out into Cloyster, who hits it with a Razor Shell and Ice Shard, finishing it off. His Ursaring is then brought out, and I switch into Malamar, who got sent in on a crit crunch. And to make things even worse, the Ursaring is Guts Flame Orb. I just decide to sack Malamar at this point, so I can get a free switch into Medicham, who one-shots it with Force Bomb. His Girafarig is then sent out, and I decide to stay in and hit it with a Banded Force Bomb, which he unfortunately lives, allowing him to use a return, killing Medicham. I then send in Snorlax and hit it with a Body Slam, winning me the fight and earning me the 4th badge. After unfortunately losing 2 Pokemon against Norman, I decided to take an average Verdant route, hoping to find a Juan counter, just to get an Incineroar, the exact fucking opposite of what I needed. Regardless, I catch the Incineroar and take out a couple trainers before reaching my next route, which is an average typical route. Which is fine, I guess, or so I thought before I got my encounter, which I reluctantly catch because, I mean, hey, free death fodder. I then take a special route that just consists of a little grass patch thing, where I find a Throw who I catch and immediately replace Ledian with. I then head into the Mighty Trainer area, and begin the fight with the gym leader, Juan, leading Crustle, who, because of Sturdy, is able to kill his lead, Lapras. He then sends out a Cloyster, who finishes Crustle off with Hidden Power, although now that I'm looking back, this was 100% avoidable, but regardless, I then send out Snorlax and set up with a bunch of Amnesias and Belly Drum, as it seems he's locked into Hidden Power. I then use Body Slam, killing the Cloyster and, well, everything else on his team, giving me the 5th badge. After beating Juan, I take an average Breezy route where I find an Apom. I then take out a couple trainers and take a Calm Confusing route where I find and catch a Mimikyu. I then go into a battle prep rest station and do my best to optimize my movesets and get some items. After that, I go into a Mighty Trainer area and begin the fight with the gym leader, who ends up being Lisa, leading Cloyster, who I immediately switch out of and send in Mimikyu, who one-shots her Gallade with Shadow Claw. She then sends out Indeedee, who my dumbass uses Shadow Claw on twice, not realizing it's part normal. I then switch into Snorlax and again to Incineroar, who uses Dark Lariat, or however the fuck you pronounce it, killing her Lunatone after she switches out. Incineroar then one-shots her Indeedee and Mr. Rhyme. Her final Pokemon, Orbeetle, is then sent out, and I managed to get it quite low before being forced to switch out into Rayquaza, who finishes it off with Dragon Claw, winning me the fight and earning me my 6th badge. Now, at this point, we have a full team, and not much is really happening, so I pretty much just run through a couple routes, eventually reaching a Mart Station, where I pick up some potions. I then head into the Mighty Trainer area, and was double checking my items, when I accidentally hit the release button on Incineroar, when I wasn't paying attention. Now, unfortunately, down a Pokemon, I begin the fight with Winona leading Cloyster, who takes out her Drifblim, Vivillon, and Mothim with Icicle Spear and Rock Blast. Her Charizard is then brought out, so I switch into Snorlax and set up some Amnesias, before taking out both their Charizard and Gyarados with Body Slam. Her final Pokemon, Mega Salamence, is then brought out, and I unfortunately make the mistake of letting him set up 2D dances. At this point, I'm kind of fucked, so I just switch into Mimikyu, gets it down to half before dying to frustration. I then send out Cloyster, who finishes it off with an Ice Shard, winning me the fight and earning me my 7th badge. Now that I've beat the 7th gym, I take a calm typical route that also gives me access to a possible legendary, but regardless, I pick up an Araquanid and then go into the powerful Pokemon thing where I beat up a trainer and find a Moltres that I unfortunately fail to catch. I then go into the rest station and attempt to optimize my Pokemon to the best of my ability, before I then go into the Mighty Trainer area and begin the fight with the final gym leader, Roxanne, leading Rayquaza, who easily takes out her Colossal with Earthquake. She then sends out an Aerodactyl, forcing me to switch into Throw, predicting a Rock move, but he uses Defog for some reason. I then use Rock Slide and Storm Throw, killing it. Her Omastar is then brought out and killed after a couple Storm Throws. She then sends out a Barbacle, so I switch into Rayquaza, predicting a Water move and killing it with a Banded Earthquake. Her Armaldo was then sent out, so I switch into Cloyster, who takes it out with a couple Razor Shells. Her final Pokemon, Probopass, is then sent out, so I switch into Snorlax, who after setting up a Belly Drum, takes it out with a few Body Slams, giving me the win and the final badge. Now that I've beat the final gym leader, I take a tough rugged route and pick up a Torkoal. I then stop at a Mart station and then go into the first E4 room and begin the fight with Drake, leading Rayquaza, who kills his first two Pokemon with banded Dragon Claws. His own Rayquaza is then brought out, so I, in fear of a speed tie, switch into Cloyster, who immediately ties to a Draco. I then send Rayquaza back out and kill his Rayquaza, Palkia, and Zekrom with Dragon Claw. His final Pokemon, Latios, is then sent out, so I switch into Snorlax, set up a few Amnesias, and kill it with a few Body Slams, winning me the fight. After beating Drake, I quickly just run through a couple routes, picking up two cannon along the way, before arriving at a rest station where I devise a plan with Torkoal, teaching him Shell Smash and giving him a White Herb, so I can maybe set up for a potential Glacia fight. I then go into the E4 room and end up facing Glacia, leading Torkoal, who after setting up some Shell Smashes, kills a Rotom. She then sets a Lapras, so I go for Rock Slide that Lapras unfortunately lives, allowing her to take out my Torkoal with Hydro Pump. I then send out Snorlax, set up some Amnesias, and use Belly Jump right after her Lapras dies to struggle. Avalugg is then brought out, so I use Rest, hit it with a couple crunches, use Rest again, and then finally, using another crunch, kill the Avalugg. Her Glastrier is then sent out, so I switch into a Araquanid in a close combat, who kills it after a Liquidation and a Leech Life. Her Weavile is then brought out, so I switch into Throw, who takes out her Weavile, and her final Pokemon, Alolan Sandslash, giving me the win. Now that I've beat Glacia, I quickly pick up a Sylveon and stop at a Battle Rest Station, where I quickly prep my team before heading into the Elite Four room, where I end up facing Sydney, leading Rayquaza, who easily one-shots his Sableye with Dragon Ascent after Mega Evolving. He then says it is Tyranitar, so I switch into Throw, who one-shots it with Storm Throw. His Skuntank is then brought out and killed after a couple Storm Throws. Yveltal is then sent out, so I switch into Snorlax, who gets a Thunder Punch off before almost dying to a knockoff, forcing me to switch, so I decide to send in two Cannon and use U-Turn, allowing me to switch back into Rayquaza, who one-shots his Yveltal, his Crawdon, and his Obstagoon, winning me the fight. After beating Sydney, I quickly run through a couple routes and enter the Elite Four room, where I begin the fight with the final member, Phoebe, leading Rayquaza, who takes out her Golurk, Alolan Marowak, Palossand, and Jellicent. She then says out an Aegislash, but I'm unfortunately forced to switch as I got hit by a Grudge, making me lose all of my PP. So I send out Throw and use Bulk Up and Knock Off, which would have killed, but he flinched me. Because I'm once again forced to switch, I decide to send out Araquanid in a close combat, who then kills the Aegislash with Liquidation. She then sends out her final Pokemon, Garantina, so I switch into Snorlax and then again into Sylveon, hoping to bait a Dragon move. But he just uses Rest, so I then use Moonblast a couple times, killing Garantina, winning me the fight, and allowing me to move on to the champion. Now that I'm done with the Elite Four, I quickly run through a couple routes until I reach a rest station, where I prepare for the Wallace fight by giving my Rayquaza Thunderbolt and Choice Specs, and by changing its nature. After that, I head into the champion room and begin the fight with Wallace, leading Rayquaza, who, well, kind of just one-shots his whole team with Thunderbolts, easily winning me the fight and allowing me to move on to the final fight in the game, Steven. So, I quickly hit up a rest station, give Rayquaza back his Choice Band, and then head into the final area and begin the fight with Steven, leading Rayquaza, who takes out his Scavalier with a couple Earthquakes. He then sends out his Lunala, who I hit with an Earthquake before unfortunately getting hit by a Will-O-Wisp, crippling my Rayquaza, forcing me to switch into Snorlax before realizing that I can't even fucking hit it. So I just decided to attempt to stall it out, and it was kind of working, until he decided to switch into Heatran, who Snorlax takes out after a couple Body Slams. He then sends out Metagross, who Snorlax also takes out with a couple of Body Slams. He then sends out Solgaleo. So I decided to just sack Snorlax at this point and send in Toucannon, who hits it with a Feather Dance, and it was at this moment I realized its ability prevents stat reduction. So I just wasted a Pokemon on absolutely nothing. I then send in my Scarf Sylveon, thinking it could outspeed and hit it with a Mystical Fire, but no. He outspeeds and kills me with Sunseal Strike, which is when I realized that he's probably running Choice Scarf. So I just go into Mega Rayquaza, who kills it after a couple Earthquakes. His Lunala is then brought back out, so I go into a Araquanid on a Hex. I then use Leech Life and switch again to Throw, who he uses Hex on again, which tells me that Lunala is holding some kind of choice item. Regardless, Throw takes it out with a couple knockoffs, and he sends out his final Pokemon, Tapu Lele. So I just switch into Araquanid, do two shots with a Leech Life, winning me the fight and the run as a whole. So yeah, anyways guys, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. I'm sorry this took so long to come out, but I will see you guys next time.